Network night. My name is Karen Steyer. I'm on the core planning group of the GAINS volunteer-based group, and GAINS stands for Greater Akron Innovation Network for Sustainability. We meet the second Wednesday of every month, and we talk about a different facet of the broad spectrum of sustainability. So tonight, I would like to introduce our main speaker and our moderator for the evening, Phillip Nabors. Let's give him a round of applause. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Karen, and good evening. So tonight we're going to talk about food. And local food is a very popular subject. There's a lot of people engaged in it. And the angle that we want to slice for this conversation tonight, though, is about job opportunities, job creation, business opportunities, and where we're at in this midst of change. I hope you're not in trouble with this system. I might move around to try to improve it. So I just want to kind of set the tone and talk about food for a minute. You know, throughout history, we've had food is a big deal in society. You know, if you look back at, you know, hunting and gathering and the agrarian revolution and the role that food has played throughout history, the importance of land and conquering of land for its fertility and fighting over water and resources and wildlife. It's been a core subject of human endeavor for as long as there have been humans. And food has also been essentially a sacred thing in our culture. Throughout history, every religion has their feasts, their fasts, their important symbolic foods, the foods that we measure the seasons. The foods that Mom made, you know, those favorite foods that Mom made. You know, very often anymore, they're not exactly the healthiest foods, but those fatty comfort foods, those things that your mom made with love because she knew you loved them, you know, those foods, that's medicine. So there's the sacred nature of food. And then there's the business of food. Now, throughout history, food has often been a local and regional endeavor. You know, in Europe, we still see towns that were based on the village model with the surrounding farms and fields and specialty food enterprises, the cheesemaker, the butcher, etc. And it's only really in the last couple hundred years that food has become industrialized, has become a global phenomenon. Okay, there was spices brought from India and Europe, you know, several hundred years ago. That was a big deal. And today, the average bite of food travels, 1,500 miles. You might have wheat grown in North Dakota that's sent to processing in Missouri, that's then sent to Chicago to be made into pasta, then sent to a distribution house in St. Louis before it's shipped to Florida. And you know, a couple hundred years ago, virtually all food was organic. It's before we created all these chemicals. And the chemical industry really came out of what to do with this chemical warfare technology from World War I. You know, what do we do with this poison now that we're not allowed to use it because it's so evil? I know, let's kill bugs. You know, it's like taking nuclear power technology and let's irradiate things. Let's irradiate our food. Let's irradiate our spices, right? So this industrialized model, this chemically laden food, and particularly this processed food, it's a new phenomenon. It's new. So the point I really want to make is that this food trip is changing. It's changed a lot in the last couple hundred years, and it's rapidly changing even today. And included in that change, there's a shift to appreciating the authenticity of food. Food grown with love. Food made with love, like Mom made. Some people think it's actually better for you. Imagine that. So we're going to have 3 presenters tonight to talk about their little parts of local food. And the conversation that we're all going to have at the end of this evening is about where are the jobs, where are the opportunities. And so we want to actually ask the speakers to have some context around where the opportunities and where the jobs are. I believe that there's a tremendous amount of micro enterprise opportunities in urban agriculture. You know, the person that just, all they got, maybe they got a tiller and they go around till for people, or they double dig for people. Or some guy's got a truck and he's figured out a good soil connection. He can bring rich, clean soils into urban environments to create some raised beds. How about the guy that wants to take recycled pallets and just build compost bins and do that for a job? Somebody donate him the screws and then it's pure profit after that because the pallets can be free. There's a lot of tiny little jobs, and job creation is an important part of creating community. You know, we have to combat crime, and by doing so we have to combat poverty. And we have to combat poor education. And that's how we create community that we all want to live in. We're a community where everybody gets to eat. Sarah Vradenburg, Master Gardener, is going to share with us this evening. Please welcome her. You can hold this mic way back here.
I might actually do better without the microphone, but we'll keep trying. The only thing my training as a master gardener taught me is what I don't know and where to go look for it so I can find the answer. So if you meet other master gardeners, understand. Tonight I'm representing a project from our church, which is First Congregational right down the street, called the Feed My Sheep Garden. And some of you may have seen it just kind of casually driving by on East Market Street. 3 years ago we were chosen by the University of Akron's Arts Lift program, and they made the gates. Those gorgeous gates were a project of high school and college students, and they actually built the gates. They did the art, they did the tiles, somebody blew the balls that are on there. But that was our first year. And the intent of the garden is always to provide our food cupboard with fresh produce. Because if there's one thing people who have food insecurity don't get enough of, it's fresh produce. Yeah. And when I walk by the tables of optional items in our church's food pantry, it's cakes and donuts and things that I keep saying, you know, is it better not to have that? Is something better than nothing? You know, but so that was really what ignited my passion. I took a specialization in backyard and local food because I believe, well, Hippocrates said it, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. So, you know, one of the reasons why our health problems are increasing is because our diet is degrading. So we started the first year, small number of beds. We got a donation of some, they're called garden socks, and they're basically black nylon tubes filled with compost. And the building where we are was the original Miller rental. And when they tore that down, as everybody knows in Akron, what they do is they just put it in the basement, cover it over with some kind of junk soil, and move on. So we couldn't use, and I also had it tested, and it's highly alkali, so it could not support. So we built raised beds. Well, that first year, our raised beds were garden socks, and we raised over 600 pounds of food on those. I think it was like 16 equivalent 4x8 beds. Last year, we started to put in raised beds because the garden socks have a shelf life. And once you poke a hole in it, they start falling apart. But at the same time, our church created a nonprofit organization called Living the Legacy. And it is the community development arm of the church so that we can get involved in the community. There are things that churches do very well, but sometimes getting outside their four walls is not one of them. And this is designed to build that bridge. And, you know, we've got this garden, we've got a need, and there is a shelter for homeless women right down the street called Harvest Home. And Yvette McMillan and Living the Legacy's director at the time, Susan Worsher, got together, and what we did was sort of dream up an entrepreneurship program. And this year it's been like fully in progress. It's an incubator. It's not strictly a, you know, they make money on the produce because, you know, it's very difficult to do that on the best of circumstances. But these women who did not have a gardening background and did not have a business background have spent all summer learning gardening skills and also putting together a market stand. And every Wednesday evening between 4 and 5:30, except tonight, because it was just one of those things, there will be a tent and a table full of the produce from our garden. And there's 3 women involved, and they do the whole thing. They put up the stand, they staff it, they pick the produce. They've decided one of their sales techniques needs to be, you come up and see a sample of what's available, and then you tell us what you want, and they go back in the garden and pick it. You can't get any fresher than that. So I would like, you know, it's a learning experience for all of us. I have never done market scale gardening before, and it's a whole lot different from backyard gardening. So we are all learning, but this is an opportunity that they are now getting that they would not have had before. And I told them one of my personal goals was, you know, even if they didn't get into an urban farm, that they would at least have gardening skills good enough to hire into, you know, a landscaping business or, you know, a garden center, and they could then learn. You know, they've got a skill that they didn't have before. So that's my program.
I wasn't ready for that abrupt ending. Next time say, in conclusion.
And wow, that's awesome, Sarah. We're now going to hear from Wesley from Akron Honey Company. Just Wesley. It's kind of like Cher, Donna, like that. Wesley. He's a sweet dude, man. He is such a sweet dude.
Just so you guys can see it.
This guy loves the product that he makes. But it's not just the product, it's the process. You know, and that's true with every enterprise. You know, you end up with the widget, but along the way, there's all this stuff that went to making this product. And it's the process is how we measure our days. Wesley.
Thanks. Thank you. You guys like honey?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of why I'm here, really. Actually, I don't really need this, but so I like honey a whole lot. That's how once again how I got to, you know, Akron Honey Company. So, I mean, real quick, I didn't know what I was going to say. About an hour before this, I got home from work, and I'm like, I probably should write out something so I can have some structure, but, you know, it never works out. So I'll just go ahead and just kind of wing it. But first, just like all of us, we wouldn't be where we're at today if we didn't have help along the way. And my wife has been outstanding in letting me do this, and because this wasn't cheap. It cost a lot of money, especially doing it in the city, and also with the guidance of a strong mentor who could calm my nerves and just, I don't know, when that initial, no pun intended, but buzz in the back of the seat on the way home the first time was riled up. I mean, she calmed my nerves a lot. That's Sarah Smithers. Sarah, can you raise your hand real quick? That's her. She does bees. And I tell y'all, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, and if it weren't for folks like her. So I appreciate it. So about a year and a half ago, well, I live in Highland Square, just around the block from every blooming thing. And about a year and a half ago, I saw this lot. It used to be a house there, but they raised it, and it was just sitting there for a while. You know how you go by something every day, you never notice it until there was I think there was a for sale sign or something. So I was at work, and I happened to talk to a real estate agent, and I asked her to check it out for me without my wife's consent. So you see how important my wife is with this, that she let me do it after I didn't ask her. But how it turned out to be, I bought it, and it looked like this, and I didn't know what I was going to do on it. I spoke with a few people. I wanted to do something for the community because, I'm not from Akron. I'm originally from Cleveland and moved down to the suburbs, to Aurora, and then to Akron. But a lot of Akron folks just love Akron. They love it. They love it. And I became the same way. I don't know how it happened, but I just became the same way. So I wanted to do something for the community. I mulled it over. I was either going to do some urban farming, a community gathering space with a nice little garden. But I don't know, something inside me said just build a fence. So I never built a fence before, didn't any of that stuff. So I built a fence, many trips back and forth to Lowe's. And I turned over, I think it was like a month, I turned this into what you see on the right-hand side. So if y'all notice, on that picture right before, that grass has been cut over and over. Who would have thought? I didn't plant one seed in this. I'm just letting you know. I didn't plant one seed, not one. So right here on the right, that's what it looks like right now. It's like last week. On the left-hand side, that's the fence. That's actually my pride and joy for a really long time until I started getting the honey. But so pretty much, I got a couple hives. That's right. I started out with 2 hives, and they did so well over the winter that I expanded that to additional 3. And then I bought 4 more on top of that. So after losing 1 and combining, I'm sitting on how many I'm sitting on right now? I think 7 or 8. So I'm sitting on 8. And they're doing very well. But I mean, we can talk all day about the good animal husbandry and how this is great for the community and great for the bees, and that's all right, and that's all right. But what I realized in doing this is that I'm not out in rural America. I'm not just with these bees. I'm with like the community. So you got to be very, very I guess cautious and very conscious. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. With whatever I'm doing. I mean, the fence, it's really to protect the bees, honestly. I'm not worried about what the bees will do to people. It's to protect the bees. And also, it's city regulation. You gotta have 6 feet so that the flight path is downward instead of right in our faces. And that's Richard Worsley. He stopped by the other, I think that's Ward 4. Is that 4? 1. That's Ward 1. I got him to come out the other day, and to my surprise, he rode his bike out. I was like, wow, this is a cool guy. I really like him. He came in, he checked out the hives. He didn't get too close though. He just looked right at him, and he got his seal of approval. He just really liked what was going on. So that was a really good day. All right, so pretty much, like I said, I loved honey. Y'all seem like you guys like honey too, and I knew nothing about beekeeping, knew nothing about honey except that you put it in your mouth and it tastes really good before I started this. But what I do is, the core of my business is micro batching. So what micro batching is where I'm capturing the different flavors and varieties of the honey throughout the times of the different seasons of the year. So you've got your spring honey, you've got maybe late spring, you've got summer, midsummer, late summer, and then fall, and it gets darker. Typically it gets darker throughout the year. So you've got that element. But now, us loving Akron, who knew that Akron had, the honey in Akron had different identity based on what neighborhood you're in. If y'all check this out right here, so this right here, this is from my apiary, my bee yard, that's an apiary. This is from, I think, July 6th. So you see how clear that is? And then how dark, this is Portage Lakes. Portage Lakes has got some bad flavor, they really do. So this is from Portage Lakes from a bee rescue that occurred, and it went very well. This is from Garrettsville. This old farmhouse in Garrettsville is about to be torn down. They called me up because it was a hive in it, and they couldn't mow the grass without the bees coming after them. So maybe it had a queen that was nasty or something. So I showed up, and the bees, I don't know, I showed up about 2 weeks later. The bees, I think they were spraying something in the fields. I understood he was using something. Okay, I can get over that. But this is some really thick quality honey. And this is just from West Akron, actually, on Dorchester. So there was a house on Dorchester. Maybe it was one of y'all's houses, I don't know. But this was from that bee rescue. So as you see, different areas. I'm talking about, so this is Dorchester, and this is Highland Square, across from every blooming thing. And by the way, my apiary is right across from every blooming thing on Jefferson. So you see, like, different times of the year, the different areas, they produce different types of flavors and textures and everything. And urban honey is like nothing you've ever tasted. Like, I'm done. So, I mean, really, that's it. That's all I have. I can tell you this: I haven't sold my honey publicly just yet, and that's gonna change on Sunday, August 17th. I'm holding my first market day, and for a long time, people have been asking me, where can I get your honey? Can you ship it to me? Is it in this store? Is it in that store? You know, I mulled it over. I knew I was gonna sell it sometime this year. I'm like, why don't I just sell it for my own real estate? So what I'm doing is retrofitting right now the bee yard to turn into a retail spot. I've worked in retail and tech for about 8 years now, so I really understand what's inviting and what's cool hip or whatever, or at least I think I do. And so I'm retrofitting right now my bee yard to be a retail spot. So it's going to be August 17th, this Sunday from 2 to 4. If you want, I have a limited amount of jars. I'm not even going to front. It's a limited amount of jars, and if you want to get a jar, you got to get there early. You do. I'm holding a jar reservation, so there's going to be 30 jars up for reservation from 1 to 1:45, and I'm assuming they're going to be gone probably by 1:30. But most importantly, y'all, this is the message I want to drive home to you guys. I have a Kickstarter. You guys are familiar with Kickstarter? Anybody? So crowdfunding. That's going to be. I'm launching it on that market day. And the reason why I'm doing Kickstarter is so to expand in a responsible way throughout different neighborhoods in Akron. So that's pretty much that's it. That's all. Yeah. I have some for you. All right. And there's some honey over there if you guys want some. Taste, not bulk, but just taste.
Yeah.
I'm trying to buy his honey over here. So, what passion have we observed tonight so far? We have another Sarah. Sarah Moldar is going to talk to us about her vermiculture adventure. Sarah.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. I'm Sarah number 2 tonight, and I'm going to present. Sorry? Okay.
I'm not sure if that's on. Is it on?
Yeah.
Closer. Put the mic closer to your face and step back a little.
So I'm going to talk about a project that I'm working on in Lebanon, in the Middle East.
Wow.
And it's vermicomposting, and maybe some of you are familiar with what it is.
Closer.
I'm just going to give a really brief introduction so we're all on the same page. So earthworms feed on organic matter in the soil, and reproduction rates of earthworms differ according to the species. In the picture here, you can see these are earthworm eggs. Maybe you've seen them in the soil. They eat between half and their full body weight per day in organic matter. So if you think about that, that's a lot of food that they're consuming. And consequently, they produce high quantities of manure, which are also referred to as casts. So this is the basis of the project, vermicomposting. What is it? It's a biotechnology that harnesses and maximizes the earthworm's natural digestive cycle to produce worm manure, which can be used and sold as an organic fertilizer, and not just a fertilizer, but also a pesticide. There's an emerging market in North America and in Europe, but in other parts of the world, like India, this is extensively practiced. So what's the big idea? Today we have a linear agro-food system, and you can see here we have agriculture, and we produce fruits and vegetables that we consume, and inevitably there's going to be waste at the end of the cycle. So vermicomposting is interesting because it makes this linear cycle cyclical, and the waste can be fed to earthworms that eat it, and then they produce manure, vermicast, which can then be used as a soil amendment to produce higher amounts of produce. So this was the subject of my thesis at the university in Lebanon. And I did a number of studies to better understand how this could be implemented in Lebanon. And one of the things that I looked at is what kind of model could be developed. You can buy vermicomposters online, but they tend to be expensive. So I really wanted to develop something that would be as simple and straightforward and affordable and accessible to the wide public as possible. So what we developed, it was me and my professor, is it's basically just a vermicomposting bin. It's a plastic crate, and this is what all fruits and vegetables are transported in. They're very easily accessible. And then you line it with a special textile material that's also easily accessible, and it's just a very straightforward process. And so as another part of my thesis, we did a micro-enterprise simulation. So I was kind of coming at this at a micro-enterprise angle. And we found a lady in a rural community in Lebanon, and she agreed to do this vermicomposting for me and sort of simulate what a micro-enterprise would be like. So she used her waste from her organic kitchen waste from her own home, plus the waste of 4 other families. And she basically conducted what would have been a micro-enterprise. And it worked really, really well. But what became evident is that for economies of scale, if you're handling this amount of waste, it would be more practical to have sort of like a more centralized area with a roof where you put all the waste together in larger containers. So this sort of became the basis of the project I proposed for funding to actually implement all these things I worked on in my thesis. So the project that I'm working on now in Lebanon is to establish cooperatively managed vermicomposting micro-enterprises located in the rural communities of Lebanon using source-separated waste, meaning source separated at the household directly, and operated by and serving diversified small-scale farmers. So real quickly, I just want to go through sort of the theoretical underpinnings of how I arrived at this idea, at this project. So first of all, vermicomposting contributes to environmental integrity. On the one end of the spectrum, you're managing waste. If you are composting or vermicomposting, then you have less waste that's contributing to the waste stream or going to the landfill. And on the other end of the spectrum, you're contributing to soil fertility, which obviously would stimulate plant growth and health. And in this picture, if you guys can see, I was growing parsley. This was an experiment that I did. And the pot on the bottom is just potting soil. There's no vermicompost. The next one up has 5% vermicompost, 15 and 25% is on top.
Wow, what a difference.
Yeah. So hopefully, using vermicompost could reduce and maybe even in the future replace the need for synthetic agrochemicals, which would obviously have a huge impact on the environment. So in addition to the environmental attributes, there's also the economic side of a microenterprise. And what I found after I did a cost-benefit analysis is that it's very financially interesting to do this. I looked at 3 different levels. One is the savings from the waste management. So Like in Lebanon, it's depending on where you are, it's either the government or the municipality that's paying for waste management, so they will have savings by not having to manage so much waste. And organic waste is something that's really nasty to handle in a landfill. Whoever is conducting the enterprise, well, obviously there are profits to be had for sure. And then what turned out to be the most interesting, that have the most benefits, is actually the farmer, the person who's the consumer. For multiple reasons, one of which is that if you're using vermicomposting, then in theory you wouldn't have to be buying pesticides and fertilizers, which are becoming more and more expensive. And there are other attributes as well that make it very interesting for the farmer. And then, so all of this came out to be very positive, very interesting. But if I could include the more immeasurable elements, such as like resounding environmental benefits, like if you're not using synthetic chemicals, you'd have more pollinators, natural soil fertility, cleaner rivers, less pesticide residues on food. I would love to be able to quantify these things and put it into my cost-benefit analysis, but obviously that's really hard to measure. Additionally, having businesses in rural communities will stimulate local economies. Again, I would love to measure that, but kind of out of the scope of my project. And then, of course, stemming the rural to urban migration, which is a problem not just in Lebanon, but in almost every country now, I think. A lot of farmers are being sort of squeezed out of their livelihoods, and they're moving to urban centers. And in Lebanon, it's a big issue because the infrastructure isn't equipped to handle these large populations. On top of that, we have all the Syrian refugees, so it's really becoming an issue. So, okay, if anyone does research about vermicomposting on the internet, there's a ton of information, and it's really obvious the environmental attributes and the economic attributes. There are a lot of businesses out there already. But I wanted to shape this project in a way that it would also have a really positive social impact on the people. And why? In Lebanon, as everywhere, hardship in the agricultural sector has forced many farmers out of their agricultural livelihoods. And microenterprises, any kind of microenterprise, helps to spread the risk and absorb the shocks that are typical of agriculture. And this might include like competition, crop failures, volatile market prices. And at the same time, using vermicompost reduces reliance on expensive synthetic inputs. So all of this contributes to livelihood security. A vermicomposting program can also diversify local livelihoods. So, like in Lebanon, for example, there are very few people, very few farmers who rely 100% on agriculture. Most of them have some little side business, maybe they drive a taxi or sell something on the side. And this is all important for the shocks that are typical of agriculture. It also stimulates local economies, which is good for the people, good for the neighborhoods, and reinforces the rural development that I was just mentioning. And so by incorporating the social element into the project, I'd like to think that I've maximized all the benefits in the environmental arena, economically and socially. So just to wrap up really quickly, if anyone's interested in this in Ohio, either as like a small business or just doing it on your own, if you're thinking about doing it year-round, it would probably have to be indoors because of our climate. Also, people in North America generally consume less or produce less organic waste per capita than in Lebanon. In Lebanon, it's so interesting to do this project because about 60% of the waste is food waste. And I don't have the number for North America, but in Europe it's 30%, so it's probably similar, 30%. So if you're going to start vermicomposting, you have to scale it according to how much waste, either it's your own household waste or if you're going to collect from neighbors. But one really great thing about vermicomposting is that it's scalable. You can start small and work up. It's only limited by the amount of earthworms that you have and the amount of waste that you're able to get, which shouldn't really be a problem. These are some prices that I've gotten from the internet, and this is really, just take this with a grain of salt. It's a wide range. And obviously, you get more money per ton of vermicompost if you're selling it in smaller quantities and bagged. And then possible consumers would be farmers, obviously, as well as gardeners, horticultural centers, and any kind of landscaping company. So, that's all.
I have two questions real quick. Can you tell me if when you say that you can stop using pesticides, is there something special about this that makes you not need to use pesticides? What is it that makes that the case?
Okay, she's asking, what is it about vermicompost that makes you not need pesticides? And I've looked into this and I've read a whole ton of scientific studies, and they're not actually sure exactly what it is, but what they think it might be is that when you have it in the soil, it triggers the plant to produce a certain phenol. It might be phenol, and that makes the plant non-palatable to insects. It makes them not interested in coming.
cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are other things that might be possible, but I remember that one off the top.
Okay.
Ding, that's the right answer.
And the other question is, if you're talking about, doing it, you're saying like food waste. Does it matter if the food waste has been conventionally produced, potato peels or whatever, with whatever goes went into it? And if the worms are then using that, does the other end of it have any of the chemical or any of the other stuff that came from your original food waste?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, she's asking, does it matter what goes into the substrate that the worms are eating? And so the big answer is that you can really add anything you want. The worms will eat anything organic. But the question here that I was working with, I wanted it to be really as fast as possible, as simple as possible, and keeping the odors down. So what I told people to do when I was collecting their waste is don't include citrus fruits, no dairy, no meat, and no cooked foods, because cooked foods tend to have, at least in Lebanon, everyone cooks with oil, olive oil, and worms don't like that. So it's a good idea to keep those things out. As far as if you're using fruits and vegetables that were grown with fertilizers and pesticides,
Right.
I don't think that's going to be an issue. And one thing, this is really interesting, one technology that people are using now with earthworms is when you have a brown site, a contaminated area, they are bringing earthworms and putting them in the soil, and they're actually cleaning the soil. So I think that a tiny little bit of chemicals on your fruits and vegetables I think it'll all be taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Would that same principle apply to artificial flavors and colors and stuff like that could end up in your food waste?
Yeah, what I told people is to stick with raw foods, so I wasn't really, but I think you can include a whole lot of things, and they'll go through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Thank you, Sarah. So, we have about a half hour left, so we want to have a conversation now. So I'd like to ask Sarah, Alex, or Sarah Wesley and Sarah to kind of hang out up here, because we want to have a little conversation. So any questions, by the way, that you have with the other speakers, now's the time to do that. But I want to steer the conversation towards where's the opportunity, where's the jobs, where's the future vision for what's possible in our community. So, we've seen, one of the things we've seen tonight is passion. There's this element in this recipe called passion. It's about believing in something bigger. This is not just about food, this is about reclamation of people. This is about reclamation of systems. And along with that is where's the job opportunities? Where's the money? Where's the sustainability in terms of our communities? So I want to ask you to ask a question about that to any of our presenters tonight. I want you to think about what your contribution might be. There's some amazing statistics about what would happen if we could shift a lot of our business that we do every day, every week, every month, every year in Northeast Ohio towards local foods. The numbers are amazing. I'm not going to read them to you. You have to read them yourself. There's a lot of jobs. There's a tremendous amount of opportunities for our communities to engage in this shift. So I don't know if any of you ate the food tonight, but I intentionally provided about 25% of it as local food. So the basil and the garlic was from our farm, which is in Knox County, called Blueberry Hill. It's a blueberry farm. And then the tomatoes were grown by an Amish grower of ours, and the watermelon was another Amish grower of ours. The bread was baked in our bakery. The French bread was baked in our bakery, and the pecan cranberry bread, which is so yummy, was also grown by or baked in a local bakery. But that was the local food in the mix tonight. The chocolate was from St. Louis, by the way. But there is so many opportunities, and what if we could do this? You know, what if we all prioritize to participate in this economy? You know, to intentionally value local foods, to intentionally find local producers. Like, let's go buy all this guy's honey. Like, let's show up 10 minutes early, and like, he's sold out by the time he's opening, all right? So Wesley, you're gonna have to do something here. You know, give him some crowdfunding money. Let this guy grow. You know, how might we? You know, what's possible? There is tremendous opportunity for us to grow jobs and to empower people that really want to start a business. There's a lot of people with a lot of passion, with a lot of skills. You know, a $500 piece of seed money to the right person could be so amazing. Is Barb still here? Where is she? Barb, come here. You're chewing. How unfortunate. Tell us what you're up to.
I'm doing urban gardening. I call it the island over off of South Street. I actually originally started a life skills program in a Brianna house and doing gardening. So this year what I actually did was I started gardening and started seeds and stuff in February, and then produced about, say, 50 flats of plants, and went into the libraries and to some of the nonprofits and did some programs teaching people how to start a basic garden, and passed out plants to everybody that was there. So I have about 100 gardens going. And on my block I have 2 lots that actually have 4 garden plots in each one. And then I have about 10 people doing those gardens. And then I have a little storefront where I'm kind of still brainstorming as to what I'm going to do with it. Right now it has a rummage sale going on. But I'm trying to create opportunity and education. A lot of people say I don't know how to garden, and it's not that you don't know how, you've just never been taught. So I'm out there trying to teach everybody how to garden. So even if it's just putting a seed in the ground. And I've had to call my gardeners and say, please go pick your tomatoes. They don't know where they are. I had the one young lady, first time gardener, I said, your radishes are ready. She says, where are they? She didn't know where they were. So I had to teach her to actually pluck the radishes. But I'm having a really good time with it, so that's what I'm doing.
So don't you want some money? Talk about the money you need.
Well, the storefront I have, I would like to turn into a classroom and teach my life skills program. And I would like to try and get the building that I have my storefront in, it's up for sale. And the landlord is actually just letting me stay there. I'm not paying any rent, but I would like to be able to create a classroom for my life skills program, for education, and for the neighborhood, for the community.
But where is it at?
So the storefront's actually at the corner of Crozier and Kling Street. And I mean, it's pretty much ready. All I need is a bathroom. So I'm trying to possibly talk to the landlord about doing some kind of land contract or something to let me get in there and actually create a classroom. I actually have Orion House interested in me producing classroom space and teaching my program. I worked for them for 15 years teaching this program, I'm working with Access right now. I teach at their facility twice a month. I'm working with Choices, which is a social club for people with mental instability. And so I've been doing a lot of teaching, and I think I can make a go of it. If I can get the building and get the classroom up and running, I can probably be teaching probably in the next month or two. I have all the programming that I had at Oriana House. I own it, so it's already been used for 15 years. So if anybody's interested in talking.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you.
So where creativity meets capital, that's really what we're talking about. How to identify creative people who are driven, who want to create opportunities and who want to do some good in the world. And this needs to be funded and expanded. And that's the opportunity here. So, we have an opportunity to do this, and I want to entertain questions right now. Who's got a burning question or comment around these subjects? How might we change the game? What are you willing to do? What are each of you willing to do to make a difference in our local economy through food and through other sustainability opportunities? How might we? How might we? Well, anybody in that cluster over there?
I have a question for all of you, really.
Speak up loud so everybody can hear you.
Okay, so for Sarah, who does a lot of the volunteering and the gardening with your church and community, and for Wesley, who does the beehive and the beekeeping, how do you go about balancing making money? So, I mean, you're only one person, and I understand you have a church community to have volunteers to help you with that, but how do you balance making profit and then also having workers under you? I mean, do you have, what do you call them, employees, or do you mainly, I guess, rely on volunteerism initially, at least, to help your business start?
The women involved in the program it's small, but they receive a monthly stipend. We wrote a grant last year that was funded, paid for some garden expansion and for labor. I have a garden manager who is also from the neighborhood. He's one of those godsends. The day the garden opened to the public, he showed up and he hasn't left since. It's just a remarkable human being. And, but yeah, we have volunteers. They come in the day before the food cupboard opens to help pick produce so it's fresh. And I'm just there. I mean, I volunteer a lot. Wesley's probably a better person to ask.
Okay. That's okay, I don't need it. Just to answer your question, that's the bottom line, I suppose. Let's keep it real. We're all about sustainability and agricultural value in the city, but the bottom line is, is it sustainable? Not just to sustain the community, but also your pocketbook. Mm-hmm. I can speak for myself saying that I don't have any employees right now. No one really volunteered. Like, I did all that myself. Well, actually, the gentleman who walked in and I spoke with over there, he helped me drill 3 of the probably 25 holes. So I don't have anyone right now. However, I think in business, when that time comes, it's not like a black and white type of decision it's going to be. It's going the answer will reveal itself. Much like, with anyone who started a new business, you don't know. We have no clue. We don't know. I have no clue. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be around in another year, but I'm telling you I am, and I'm going to be around for another 5 years. So we'll see. I don't know. That is, to answer your question, you never know until you get there, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah, and that's understandable. I guess my question is more, do you find that people are more willing to volunteer? I mean, do you get people that come to you wanting to volunteer as opposed to work for you? So I guess that's another question following from what I initially was bringing up. So that pretty much answers it.
Sorry if it didn't, but that's
No, that's fine.
What else? What else is on your mind? What else is in your heart about this? Karen?
So Akron has the Global Business Accelerator. You know, it's this like building where all these tech brains come together. Can we have a sustainability, food-based, some kind of, you know, place where those type of people meet? You know, is there, and this is just a question for the room, I really don't, know, it's not for anyone in the panel, but is Akron ready for, supporting that type of economy? Can we help ourselves locally through that type of business, through small business, food-based business, sustainable businesses, and that's a big broad spectrum, but I just kind of feel like we've been such a tech-based and material-based with polymers, most recently economy. Why doesn't Akron, with its perfect size, it's not too big, it's not too small, why can't we find investors to give seed money to small businesses? Why can't we as a whole find a way to rally around this type of economy?
I certainly believe that it's time for kind of an incubator, business incubator around sustainable businesses. I mean, part of why we created this program tonight was to kind of ask that question. And a lot of incubation of business is about how we can sell to the global economy, as you just alluded to. And how might we sustain our local economy is a point of view that has not exactly been embraced yet. But like most things, it's consumer driven. Once upon a time, birthing in hospitals was a very clinical affair. And then they were busy one day and the operating rooms were busy and somebody came in and she had to deliver right now. So they put her in this room and there happened to be a lazy boy, chair in there for the dad to hang out in. So they called it a birthing suite. It really wasn't, but they called it that. And then everybody calls up the hospital wanting to book the birthing suite. So hospitals were tripping over each other to embrace a more humane way of birthing babies. It wasn't because, the guys in the white coats thought this was a good idea. It was because the women who wanted to have babies wanted this. It was consumer driven. And that's the same thing that's happening here. This requires a little push from people who want to create business opportunity, and it requires also a pull from the consumers. And that's the shift that we're seeing now. Sarah has something to say about this.
Detroit and Cleveland are, probably Cleveland is better because Detroit just has its own issues to deal with, but both of those cities have kind of staked their futures on urban agriculture. And in Cleveland, partnership of the City of Cleveland and OSU Extension has farm incubators where people with an idea that they want to grow can lease a quarter acre of land. And you can get a lot of food in a quarter acre of land. And so they get a chance to try out their idea. They are also provided with business skills so that they get the idea of what their inputs are in terms of costs, the time it takes so that they've got some idea of labor, and then what they get when it goes to market. A couple of years ago, and I'm sure several people in the room were there, we had a presentation on public markets. And Akron had a very thriving public market not far from where Barb lives now. And that is another business opportunity. We've all seen how the farmers markets do. The one in Highland Square is very good. The Howe Avenue, or Howe Meadow, If you don't get there by 11 o'clock, you lose out on the food. Can we create that kind of an atmosphere in the urban setting so that people who live in food deserts can walk to where they get their food and get good food instead of walking to McDonald's and eating poison?
Yeah.
It's doable, but it is, and I would love to get the city on board because they have some resources that could, bolster this and get it off the ground. Not that they would totally fund it, because it needs to be a partnership. To be sustainable, everybody's got to have a dog in the fight. But the city's dog is creating yet another way for people to get involved in the community and to stay here. What a better way to keep people in Akron than tie them to the land. So that's my speech.
Can I comment on
Yeah.
that real quick? This is in the same vein. One of my challenges right now, and this is one of the bottom line type of challenges, is the cost of doing business. So if I were on a farm, 100, 200 acres, and it was handed down to me and my family, it's paid for, it's getting that tax break for agricultural value, and the taxes are very small. Right now in Akron, and this is Summit County though, in Summit County, you either have to have 10 acres or bringing in $2,500 a year for 3 years in order to get this tax break. So what that means for someone starting up like myself is my little baby plot, my little vacant land right there they used to house a home. It's costing, I think it's like $20 to $30 monthly at least. Where I did some calling around, did a whole lot of research. If I were to get that agricultural rate, that'd be, instead of $20, $30 a month, it'd be a couple bucks a year. That makes or breaks some businesses. And I spoke with the person who's in charge of that actually, and it didn't seem, I guess here's where I'm answering or commenting on the question, as far as moving forward, are we ready for it? They didn't seem to get the message it's sending as not don't do business here, or you can't do business here, or we're not going to make it easier for you to do business here. I mean, what the model that I'm going after, the business model I'm going after, it's been used on the West Coast, it's been used on the East Coast. It's really hip. It's like one of the coolest things that are happening around us. This isn't the first time. We're just not there. They don't realize that. So. Just to answer your question, as far as moving forward, we're still kind of but I think we have the people, around to, propel us forward someday.
So Wesley, I think that the tax issue on agricultural production, where I believe it's a state-driven thing.
It is.
That's an opportunity for the people to provide some support for legislative relief. Let's have a micro-enterprise agricultural tax scheme. Let's change. Let's ask for change from our legislatures. By the way, 66 out of the 88 rural counties in Ohio are rural. So that might actually go someplace in the State House. Right. Somebody were to grab that issue. That's something that, by the way, rural communities and urban communities could probably agree on. There's often a very big gulf between cities and rural people politically, and I wish we could agree on more things. That would be one that might be possible. We have a little bit more time. I want to know what else you have on your mind. What's the burning question or comment that's out there in the room? Jerry.
Yeah. Phil, maybe.
You want to come up?
No, it's fine. Maybe.
No, we like it. You're really cute. Come on.
You as a local retailer through the mustard seed market, what is it that you need to see out of a local producer so that they could get shelf space within a small retail market like the mustard seed, as opposed to even larger ones? And in terms of how do our local producers scale up and create a product that is going to be able to be of interest to you as a retail food market?
Okay, so how do they sell to us? We embraced local produce the first year we were in business, 35 years ago. We found a local guy to grow us carrots in Hartville. We now have about 60 farmers that grow for us, and some of those are pretty good scale. I mean, they're big. It's like truckloads of stuff. So anything that we can sell local, we do sell local. Most of those people are Amish. We have a couple of English growers, but ironically, most of them are Amish. And it's kind of a networking thing. I'm open to broadening our supply, but probably it's not going to be the common items. It's not going to be tomatoes. It's not going to be cucumbers. It has to be probably some specialty item, some value-added product, something that's unique, special, and different. Local honey would be cool. Please crowdfund him so he can then sell to us.
Well, I mean, in order for Wesley to have his product in your store, you have particular requirements on him in terms of quality and volume and reliability and all of that?
Yeah, exactly. As I shared with Wesley earlier tonight, you can't just be on our shelf for 2 weeks and now there's a big hole where you used to be. You have to have enough volume to sustain the business. And even if it's seasonal, as I shared with him, that even if you're okay in the spring you're going to harvest your hives, now that you've got your bees through the winter and they survived, even a seasonal deal is okay. But probably the thing that really makes a difference for us is that there's something more than the food. There's a story. There's some bigger meaning. You're helping somebody that needs help. You're reclaiming some land that needs reclaimed. There's some value added, other than the food, there's some value added to the process. I alluded to earlier to that there's a difference between the product and the process. Are you helping people that need help get jobs? Are you helping former prisoners get back and into the workforce? Are you helping homeless people that now are getting a job and getting a home out of it? There's more to the story than just the product. There's the process. Yes, Nate?
I have a question for each of the Sarahs, if I may. Sarah number one, and a comment, a reply you made earlier, you said that the city has resources available for developing, for doing what, and what are those resources?
I don't know specifically, but the city is very good at ferreting out and writing grants. And I do know that there is money out there, both from private foundations and from the federal government, for urban agriculture. Marcia Fudge is our representative in this area, and she's all over that. She got a grant for Let's Grow Akron down at the pump house at Summit Lake for a high tunnel. So now they have some season extension. And so it might not be financial resources, but the city has a lot of body resources that those of us volunteers in the community simply do not have.
Okay, awesome. Sarah number two, kind of a basic question, but what kind of worms did you use? Did you use different species of worms, or just any worms?
Yeah. The worms, like if you do research on the internet, what most people use is a species called the red wiggler. and they are preferred because they eat so quickly. And they're worms that, like, what they do is decompose. They eat food, litter that's on the top of the soil, and they just eat very quickly. So they're sort of like the preferred species. I don't think they're like naturally here. I ordered them on the internet. I think it's like a tropical species. But what I did in Lebanon is because I can't rely on the postal system. And secondly, it's also rather expensive to buy worms. We just use local worms. And the idea being that way anyone can go out, dig up some worms and use them. So I don't even know exactly what species we were using, but I don't think it really matters because I can't tell someone, find this exact worm and exactly where they're going to find it and how do you identify it. So we just use local worms. So all worms will work for vermicomposting. It's just a question of, is it the most efficient or not?
Sarah, I have a question for you. Why Lebanon?
Yeah, I was wondering.
I went to college at Oberlin College, and it was a great experience. It was really close to home. It's about an hour away. So I had this opportunity to go to Lebanon, and I thought, why not go somewhere else and learn another language and be exposed to another culture.
All right, good.
That's why humans have expanded around the globe, by the way. That. What else do you have in your mind?
I just want to fill in the rest of the answers to that question you asked, Sarah. Part of the answer is she grew up in the backseat of a bicycle that was traveling from here to San Diego. So she came by it honestly.
Okay, that's a little inside story we don't all know about. Well, look who just got here.
Hello. So,
Gina, what do you have?
in order to grow an economy, you need several things. I haven't heard a lot, maybe I missed it, but about the market. Like literally, who are you selling to? Does anybody has anybody identified that? Has anybody put numbers on that? You, Phil, have a market, a retail store that sees a certain number of individuals that come through your door. That's a market. So it's great to have ideas. It's great to say, I could do this, I could, but you literally need to know you can sell your product. So, and that someone's going to buy it. It's the basics. So what is the number of people, in your estimation, Phil, who are willing, wanting, and seeking local organic produce and food? Size.
Well, the numbers of customers at the farmers market are somewhat known. We have about 20,000 customers a week between our two stores. So we'll add another 8,000 customers in Highland Square a week. Those transactions will be smaller because everybody's going to buy a ton of a whole car full of groceries. It's going to be smaller, but that is a small amount of the market. Look how many people live in Greater Akron. There's 400,000 people in Greater Akron. There's a couple 100,000 within the city limits, 190,000 or so. Those people aren't shopping at my store. There's tremendous opportunity. Everybody eats. There's an empty belly in every neighborhood. There's such a we're talking about the food business here. We're not talking about tennis shoe business. We're not talking about the belt business. We're not talking about fine jewelry business. We're talking about food. Everybody eats. It's such a tremendous opportunity. I don't know what answers y'all have to that.
I was just going to say our market is anybody who eats. I understand about the local organic, and it's one of the sad realities of life is that the people who really need that kind of food are the least able to afford it. And so it would be great to get local organic out of the niche market and into a regular market. And this is something that I think is particularly suited to local enterprises, because once you ramp up economies of scale to a certain point, even organic farms have to do things that if we knew they were doing them, we would say, I don't think I want that. I heard on NPR a few weeks ago that the FDA allows organic farmers to spray their fruit trees with antibiotics the first few years to get them up and running. And the conversation was around whether they were going to allow that to continue to happen. And I said, if I knew that somebody was spraying antibiotics on my organic apples, I wouldn't buy them, you know? And I think so a lot of that's information, and I think the agricultural system in this country grew up on a local model, and it really does not work on an agri-industrial model. We're losing our topsoil. We are losing the nutrients that should be in the food because the topsoil's no good. So we really need to pull that back in. And economies would be much more stable if it was a local phenomenon, as opposed to, you know, if California dries up, there's an awful lot of people who are going to have to pay a whole lot more for food, and California is drying up. So, you know, my market is people who can walk to the market stand, people who drive by and see that it's open. You know, it's a very select, small group of people, but, you know, we're working on doing better at that.
I had to reference my notes here because it's been a while since I visited this, but it's pretty much the same. I know that my I don't know if you say target customer, but the customer who's most likely to buy from me is female, 22 to 48, 50 years old, and males from 28 to about almost 45 years old. And so that's immediate. That's right now. That'll continue on. But once again, anyone who eats outside of just like individuals, you have families in the local community. Local being, you know, Akron, extending up to Cleveland, and HARs, hip attractive restaurants. Like for instance, down at the Lock View, you probably see, you know, me advertised down there because they're going to be using me for some ingredients, and that's really soon probably. And I think that's groceries too.
Yeah, remember we talked?
That's right. When I get to that scale, so that's my scale.
You know, by the way, California is going to dry up. You know, a tremendous percentage of produce comes from the Central Valley in California. Their aquifers are falling. Ohio used to be the truck farm for New York and Chicago. There used to be a tremendous amount of produce grown in Ohio to serve major markets in the U.S. The food business is changing. It's changing. It's changing because of taste, culture, economies. It's changing because of the environment. It's changing because of energy. I used to pay $1 a box for produce to come from the Central Valley, the Mustard Seed Market in Akron, Ohio. It's now $5 a box. The cost of the box hasn't changed that much. You know, the cost of the box is between $20 and $40 plus freight, depending upon what it is and when it is. But the cost of freight has changed. The percentage of freight has changed. Does anybody think Mideast oil is stable? No. It's incredibly fragile. I'm so glad we have fracking. Whatever. It's fragile. It's fragile. It's a fragile system. We need, as a matter of resiliency, of sustainability, if you really dissect that word, we need to grow our own food. We need to accelerate this opportunity. And that's what I want to leave you with. Barb, do you have a question?
Well, I was going to make a comment.
A comment.
Yeah, just a quick one. One of the things that was up on the screen was talking about how they have a lot of vacant lots. And I have found through my process of trying to get the neighborhood gardens going is that there's a lot of properties that are 100 foot by 40 feet that owe $10,000 in back taxes. If we can get the city to change that around so that the people are not getting charged for having that property, but instead they're taking away that debt by providing nutrients to all of the neighbors. So what I had proposed when I did my grant was that the city changed the rules so that if the people participated with their piece of vacant land in neighborhood gardening, is that the city would subtract debt from their taxes.
Great idea.
Aha, so that's another opportunity that's how we can ask our government to provide support for this sustainable food system, is changing the tax load on vacant land.
A lot of the people owe $10,000. They don't have a house they're collecting money.
The lot's
so they
not
can
worth
pay it.
$10,000.
No, and the city's charging them $150 every time they mow it, if it gets above 9 inches tall. So the city's tacking that bill on and making it impossible. So the people are hiding. So we can't even track down the property owner of that vacant lot to say, hey, we want a garden on your lot, because they like, I owe $10,000. I don't want the city to find me.
How about we bale hay on small lots?
There we go.
I just went to the hay auction in Worcester last Saturday, by the way. I mean, hay goes for big money. It's like $200 a ton, $400 a ton if it's real beautiful. I can't tell the difference, but these farmers could. It was amazing. It was a really cool experience. Ever been to a hay auction? You should go. Yes?
I'm very late to the meeting, but,
We already talked about that.
okay. I have a suggestion. For anybody who wants to sell produce locally, there is an entire subculture of that going on already. We have quite a few Nepalese gardeners.
Nepalese.
Yes, and I personally own a vacant lot that a Thai woman gardens on. Every inch of space is covered. And she has a pick your own. Herbs, beans, peppers, the stuff that her community wants but can't find, she sees it. And it's all underground. And so she sells to her Thai community, our Nepalese gardeners, and those gardens over on Crosby, those people aren't eating all that food. They're selling to the Asian markets around town. They're supplying the Asian markets. So they're already doing this. So my suggestion would be, if anybody wants to do that, connect with these people and have them mentor you of how they're doing it. I mean, they didn't go and ask for permission from any city official, or they didn't get any particular license. They just do it. It's really cool to see. It's their economy.
Well, if it's privately owned land and you're not asking the city for water, the city has nothing to say about it.
Right. Actually, you don't even have to get the city water. Basically, if you can get the privately owned property, and you can provide your own water.
All right, well, I mean, she's got, the Thai woman that's gardening on my vacant land, has Ranger also got to the house next door.
Right.
And she's a completely self-contained system, and you don't even know she's back there, but her customers know she's back there, and come with bags, and pick what they want, and she decides how much it costs, and this is her job.
Is that Penn?
Yes.
One of the things I love about America is that, we are a melting pot. And every time a new wave of immigrants come, they're hungry and they work hard and they show us how to do it. They remind us of what's possible. And that's happened year after year after year, generation after generation after generation.
Our next crop of refugees is coming in, I believe, in October. Is Susan still here? Congolese. So we will add a little bit of Africa to the food mix. So look forward.
I want to conclude our conversation this evening. We're going to do a little bit more networking, amongst ourselves. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank our speakers. Thank you, Wesley. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. I love that you opened your heart to Lebanon. Thank you, everybody.